Welcome back. The Department of Justice releasing a bombshell report on the weaponization of government. It claims the Biden Justice Department, led by former Attorney General Merrick Garland, weaponized the law to target pro-life defendants and tried to give them longer prison sentences. And that includes the case of pro-life activist Mark Houck. The father of 7 was charged with obstructing access to an abortion clinic. A SWAT team of more than a dozen people raided his home, arresting him in front of his children. He faced up to 11 years in prison. A jury later acquitted him. You'll remember we covered this story, and here he is on America's Newsroom after that.
Look, I'm a pro-lifer, and I've been a pro-lifer. I've been an activist for 20 plus years, and you know, we all know what happened. But the federal government did come after me with the full force of the law, and raided my home on September 23rd as a response to that. And you know, here we are 4 months after that raid, vindicated, hopefully, with no issue with appeal.
And we remember that well. Well, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is with us here. Thank you so much for being here.
Morning.
I want to put a couple statistics here. Average 26.8 months for pro-life defendants versus 12.3 months for pro-abortion offenders. And this from a Biden official, former Biden official, saying the Civil Rights Division brought law enforcement leaders, crisis pregnancy center representatives, faith leaders, and reproductive health care staff together to address the real violence, threats of violence, and obstruction that too many people face in our country when it comes to reproductive health care. We enforce the law even-handedly and put public safety at the center of this work. I imagine you disagree with that.
I do, and I disagree not because it's just my opinion. I disagree because of the work that we did over the past year at the department, understanding what happened that led to these completely inappropriate results. And prosecutors have a big say in sentencings in the federal system. The judge ultimately imposes sentence, but what we saw is prosecutors arguing for really harsh sentences, inconsistent with what they should have been doing and inconsistent with what they were arguing when it was exactly the opposite. And we saw internal emails, internal correspondence, which is now part of the report, where Department of Justice prosecutors are working hand in hand with NGOs and nonprofits to target and go after pro-life individuals who were not breaking the law. Okay, and I'll tell you what, there's no emails in my inbox from NGOs telling me what to do, and it's disappointing. And look, I hope the American people can see the work that we did over the past year, trying to understand what happened. But once they see it, I think folks will be frustrated and disappointed.
I went through it. What did the Biden team have to gain by giving members of Planned Parenthood information about pro-lifers?
It's a great question. I mean, the only thing they had to gain from the Department of Justice perspective is it helped their agenda, the Department of Justice's agenda at the time, which was to single-handedly target one group over another. So this isn't saying, let's go after drug dealers, or let's go after robbers or murderers. They're saying, let's go after individuals who are pro-life, okay? That's what they were doing. And a lot of folks, including you all, reported on it and called out that it looked like it was happening. But until we had an opportunity to go back and look at the records and the emails and what we had internally, which is what we did the past year, it was hard to kind of put meat behind that, which we've done now.
Okay, so that news is out there. We got a bunch of other stories we're going to rifle.
Yeah, there was this Molotov cocktail attack on Sam Altman's home. So he's the CEO of OpenAI. Obviously, there's a lot of interest there. There's federal and state charges against this guy, Daniel Moreno Gama, if you guys can pull up the rap sheet there. All sorts of different things. The question is, are you concerned about copycat type of attacks?
Sure, yes, absolutely. And look, the FBI, local law enforcement worked really hard this weekend to got a complaint, search warrant sworn out to catch him. And as alleged in the complaint, he confessed, and we got a lot of evidence that I think will help that case. And this is always a concern. I mean, the rhetoric and the violence going on, and in this case, and over the past several months, it's mostly coming from leftist extreme groups, is a real problem in this country right now. And when somebody has to be concerned of having a Molotov cocktail thrown over their fence, or the place where they work having bricks thrown at them or chairs, that's something that we're concerned. I will tell you, the FBI did a great job. investigating this, and so did the state and local law enforcement, and very quickly identifying not only who did it, but also then going and getting the probable cause to get the evidence that they
want to figure out what motive was here and whether or not other people are going to act on it. Meanwhile, last week, the First Lady dropped a bomb at the White House. Here's Melania Trump at the White House talking about the Epstein files.
The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors.
Questions that come off of this. Did you know she was going to make that statement? Did you have information prior? Will you act on her request before Congress? And when you remember what the president said, when you give all the files out there, the innocent people are going to be hurt. And we've seen that to some degree. How would you answer those three questions?
So, no, the First Lady does not check with me before she speaks to the American people, and I wouldn't expect her to. But what she said rings true to me. And what I mean by that is there have been tons of false narratives around her and her relationship or lack thereof with Epstein. And so I get her frustration and complaints, and I readily agree with it. As far as her call to Congress, it's exactly the same thing that we have been saying for the past year, which is the following. If there is a victim that has evidence against anybody, they should absolutely report it to the FBI, and we will take it seriously no matter what. And so her call to Congress to have witnesses come forward and testify is not inconsistent with what the Department of Justice and President Trump, frankly, has been saying for many years. And so I know that
you have the authority to go ahead and release more, do you not? And you have the authority to go to Congress, perhaps?
No, we have released everything. So listen, we reviewed 6 million pieces of paper. What we released was anything associated with the Epstein files. So there, we are not sitting on a single piece of paper. Nothing that should be released. If we find something else tomorrow, we'll release it. I don't anticipate we will. So the misguided assumption that there is more to be released is because we reviewed millions and millions of pages within the department, millions of which had nothing to do with Epstein. So it's not as if we looked at a document and said, you know, we're not going to release that. If we didn't release it, it's because it was not responsive to the law and therefore not part of the Epstein files. What we've done with Congress is we by law, we had to make certain redactions, by law, including of victims and of PI information. But we said to Congress, any congressman can come in and spend as much time as they want looking at everything unredacted. And if you think we should be doing something, Congressman or Congresswoman, let us know and we will do it. And so we have that. I don't know how this department or this president can be more transparent than saying, American people, here's every single document in our entire database. And if we had to redact it because of victim names, anybody can come and look at it if you're a member of Congress. No restrictions, unredacted.
I want to squeeze in one more topic, and that is about fentanyl, because President Trump ran on the issue to try to stop fentanyl seizures. And apparently, like, these seizures at the border have fallen, right? And we also believe that the overdose deaths are decreasing quite a bit. So there's something that is working. And I'm curious if there is also, you know, some prosecutions in the works to punish the people who brought it in the first place.
Yes, so thank you for that question. And yes, there are dozens of prosecutions. We have brought in more cartel kingpins from Mexico in just 1 year, and we're working very well with the Mexican government to do that, to do these prosecutions. We have every law enforcement agency across the government is working full-time on the fentanyl crisis. We are doing better, but we have so much more work to do. This is something that will happen for a long time. And you look at today, it's you know, almost tax day. We're a year and a half, you know, a year and 2 months in, and you have the president celebrating, I think correctly, some of the great things we're doing, no tax on tips, things like that. You have a new fraud task force that to really save money, to go back and get some of that money. But the drug war is still a war. And so we have a lot of things to celebrate that the president has done the past year, and I'm right there with him on that. But he also expects us to continue to tackle the problem of fentanyl. And
I'm going to push on one more topic about the NFL, because this news came out about a week ago. Is the NFL, in your view, engaging in anti-competitive practice? that would hurt the fans of the sport itself.
Sure. So look, that is a leak that came out. So I'm certainly not going to comment on a leak. I think that we and President Trump have said for years that we have to be very careful with broadcasting, with streaming services, to make sure that the American consumer is not harmed. And that is something we are doing and we will continue to do. But a single leak about whether we're doing something or not doing something is not something that I'm going to talk about.
And so here you are, acting Attorney General, possibly Attorney General?
Look, I love this job. I love serving this administration, and I will continue doing it in whatever capacity President Trump wants me to.
Gotcha. Thanks for being here.
I think that's a yes.
It was a yes. Sure.
Okay, right on. Nice to see you.
Nice
Todd
to see you
Blanche,
as well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
For your time. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.